Magic and Mystery in Tibet by Alexandra David-Neel. Practices to acquire fearlessness, challenging demonical beings. There is hardly any country which can vie with Tibet as to the riches, variety, and picturesqueness of its folklore regarding ghosts and demons. If we were to rely on popular beliefs, we should conclude that evil spirits greatly outnumber the human population of the land of the snow. Assuming thousands of different shapes, these malignant beings are said to dwell in rocks, trees, valleys, lakes, springs, and many other places. Always bent on mischief, they hunt men and animals to steal their vital breath and feed upon it. They wander for pure pleasure across forests, high barren hills, and every traveler risks being confronted by one of them at any turn of the road. Official Lamaist magicians undertake to convert or to subdue these dangerous neighbors in order to stop their undesirable activity and to transform them into useful, obedient servants. Sorcerers compete with them in this art, but nearly always practice it with a view to using the power of the benevolent beings which they have turned for their own, no less evil purposes. So, as for Tibetan mystics, they patronize a certain kind of commerce with demons that is connected with psychic training. This consists in meetings deliberately sought by the disciple, either to challenge demonical beings or to give them alms. These rites are very different from those which have been described at the beginning of this chapter. Though they too may sometimes appear ridiculous and even repugnant according to our ideas, their purpose is useful or lofty, such as liberating from fear, awakening feelings of boundless practical compassion, leading to complete detachment, and finally to spiritual illumination. It happens not infrequently that credulous men who firmly believe in the strictly objective existence of thousands of demons betake themselves to a mystic Lama and, desirous of leading a religious life, beg to be accepted as his disciples. All these simpletons are not turned away and sent back to their village with good advice regarding morality and the practice of goodwill towards everyone. Some of them who appear capable of progressing towards enlightenment may well be favored with more extended teaching. If the Lama is a true adept of the short path, his first care will be to provide the new disciple with opportunities of liberating himself from his terror of the various demons. Lengthy explanations and demonstrations of truth and error are not part of mystic teachers' methods. They simply place their disciples in the conditions required to experience events and sensations that will awaken their reflection and allow them to acquire knowledge. The extent of the profit derived from such experiences depends on the pupil's intelligence. A young man of my acquaintance was sent by his master, a Lama from Amdo, to a solitary, gloomy ravine, which was supposed to be haunted by evil subhuman beings. He was told to tie himself to a tree or a rock at night, calling on the ferocious Towos, T-O-W-O-S, Towos, which Tibetan painters show eating the brains of men. He was to challenge them. However terrified he might feel, he was commanded to resist the temptation of untying himself and running away. He must remain bound to his post until sunrise. This is nearly a classic practice. It is enjoined on many Tibetan novices as the first step on the mystic path. Sometimes the disciples must remain bound for 3 days and 3 nights, or even longer, or for even a longer period, fasting, sleeping, experiencing the conditions of utter weariness and starvation, that so easily bring hallucinations. Such exercises naturally at times have tragic consequences. Yongden was told a story that illustrates this by an old Lama of Tsarang when I was traveling incognito to Lhasa. Seated in a corner of the room, the insignificant Mama whom I personified at the time did not miss one word of the story. In their youth, this Lama and his younger brother, called Lodo, Lodo, had left their monastery to follow a wandering ascetic of another region who had established himself for a time as a hermit on a hill called Phagri, Phagri, a well-known place of pilgrimage situated not far from Dayut, Dayul. The anchorite commanded the young brother to tie himself to the neck of a tree in a woody place, which was said to be haunted by Thagsang, Thagsyang, a demon who generally appears under the shape of a tiger, to whom the ferocious instincts of that animal are ascribed. Once bound as a victim to this sacrificial post, the man was to imagine that he was a cow which had been led there as a propitiating offer to Thagsang. Keeping his thoughts concentrated on that idea and lowing now and then to identify himself more completely with the beast, he would, if the concentration was strong enough, reach a state of trance in which, having entirely lost the consciousness of his own personality, he would experience the anguish of a cow in danger of being devoured. The exercise was to last for 3 consecutive days and nights. 4 days went by, and the novice did not return to his matter. On the following of the 5th day, the latter said to the elder of the disciples, "I had a strange dream last night. Go and fetch your brother." The monk obeyed. An appalling sight awaited him in the forest. The corpse of Lodo, torn and half devoured, remained partly fastened to a tree, while bloody pieces lay scattered around the surrounding bushes. The terrified man collected the ghastly remains in his monastic toga and hastened back to his guru. When he reached the hut in which the latter lived with his 2 disciples, he found it empty. The Lama had left, taking with him all his belongings, 2 religious books, a few ritualistic implements, and his traveling stick with a trident on top. "I felt that I was becoming mad," said the old Tibetan. That sudden departure frightened me even more than the discovery of my brother's mangled body. What had our teacher dreamt? Did he know the awful fate of the disciple? Why had he gone? Without actually knowing any better than the afflicted monk what reasons had led to the Lama's running away, I nevertheless thought that when he saw that his disciple had not returned, he might have feared some accident had befallen the young man in the forest haunted by wild beasts. Perhaps he had really received some kind of mysterious information in a dream about a tragic event, and thought it prudent to escape the anger and the revenge of the victim's family. As for the novice's death, it could be explained quite naturally. Panthers are frequently found in that region. Some leopards roam also in the woods. I had met 2 myself a few days before, hearing the story. One of these animals, which the monk himself had perhaps attracted by his lowing, might have killed him before he had time to break his bonds and defend himself. But a very different interpretation was given to the sad story by the man who had told it, and those seated around him. According to them, the demon tiger had seized upon the offering imprudently presented to him. The young disciple, they said, ignored the magic words and gestures which would have protected him, and in this matter the fault of his teacher was very great, for he ought never have sent him to challenge the demon tiger without arming him with the teachings and ritualistic formula which are efficacious weapons in such cases. But in the utmost depth of his soul, the monk, wounded in his brotherly love, had a more terrible idea, which he expressed in a low and trembling voice. "Who knows," he said, "if that strange Lama was not a demon tiger himself, who had taken on a human form to attract a victim? He could not have killed my poor brother while in human form, but at night, when I was asleep, resuming the tiger shape, he ran to the forest and satisfied his ferocious craving." The last words of the old man met with profound silence. He had probably told this terrifying episode of his long-lost youth many times, but his audience was once more deeply impressed. Might it not still happen any day? Thang Yang and so many other kindred spirits continued to prowl around the villages and to follow the travelers, seeking to prey upon those who are insufficiently protected. Everyone there believed it. In the large kitchen, dimly lighted by the flames, leaping now and then from the hearth, a woman lifted her eyes instinctively towards the protective charms pasted on the walls, as if she wanted to ascertain that they were still there. The grandfather went into the next room, where the evening offering lamps burnt on the family altar, and the sweet fragrance of incense sticks he had lighted floated in to soothe our nerves, although one may suppose that a number of accidents apparently of occult origin do actually happen during the performance of these rites, yet they can only be exceptional. So it seems only logical that after spending a certain amount of time sitting in haunted places and challenging evil spirits, the disciple should come to doubt the existence of beings which never appear. I have questioned several lamas on this subject. "Incredulity comes sometimes," answered Agasius from Derge, Derge. "Indeed, it is one of the ultimate objects of the mystic masters. But if the disciple reaches this state of mind before the proper time, he misses something which his exercises are designed to develop, and that is fearlessness. Moreover, the teachers do not approve of simple incredulity. They deem it contrary to truth. The disciple must understand that gods and demons do really exist for those who believe in their existence, and that they are possessed with the power of benefiting or harming those who worship or fear them. However, very few reach incredulity in the early part of their training. Most novices actually see frightful apparitions. I shall not venture to contradict this latter opinion. A number of instances have proved to me that it is well grounded. Darkness, the peculiarly wild aspect of the places chosen for meeting the dreaded evil beings, the power that Orientals possess to a high degree of visualizing their thoughts, are all sufficient to produce hallucinations. But must we classify all phenomena witnessed by the celebrants of these curious rites as hallucinations? Tibetans affirm that we must not. I had the opportunity of talking with the Gomchen of Ga, G-A, in eastern Tibet called Kushag Wanchen about sudden deaths which occurred while calling up demons. This Lama did not appear inclined towards superstition, and I thought he would agree with my opinion on this matter. Quote, "Those who died were killed by fear. Their visions were the creation of their own imagination. He who does not believe in demons would never be killed by them." End quote. I was much astonished when the anchorites replied in a peculiar tone of voice, quote, "According to that, it must also follow that a man who does not believe in the existence of tigers may feel confident that none of them would ever hurt him, even if he were confronted by such a beast." End quote. And he continued, quote, "Visualizing mental formations, either voluntary or not, is a most mysterious process. What becomes of these creations? May it not be that, like children born of our flesh, these children of our mind separate their lives from ours, escape our control, and play parts of their own? Must we not also consider that we are not the only ones capable of creating such formations, and if such entities exist in the world, are we not liable to come into touch with them, either by the will of their maker or from some other cause? Could one of these causes not be that through our mind or through our material deeds we bring about the conditions in which these entities are capable of manifesting some kind of activity? I will give you an illustration," he continued. "If you are living on a dry spot of land at some distance from the banks of the river, fishes will never approach you. But cut a channel between the river and your dwelling place and dig a pond in the dry spot of ground. Then, as the water runs in it, fishes will come from the river, and you will see them moving before your eyes. It is only prudent to beware of opening channels without due consideration. Few indeed suspect the great storehouse of the world which they tap unconsciously contains." End quote. And in lighter vein, he concluded, "One must know how to protect oneself against tigers to which one has given birth, as well as against those that have been begotten by others." And that concludes that part of that chapter. The next chapter will be called The Dreadful Mystic Banquet. Till soon.